Greetings and welcome. I'm Mike Bankhead, your host. I'm a bass player and songwriter from the Jam City, Dayton, Ohio. And, I like to try to go international here when I can. I've had a Canadian guest, a guest that's half Mexican, half Spanish. I've had a guest from the Netherlands. Today, you're getting my first Lithuanian guest. That's right, we go to the Baltics today on the You Could Be My Aramis podcast. Now, technically, the guest, Simona Smirnova, no longer lives in the Baltics. She lives in New York City. But yeah, let's get to the conversation. You can hear her talk about her life. Good morning, Simona.
Good morning, Mike.
We each have our coffee, so this is going to be useful. Could you please introduce yourself to the lovely listeners and drop me your elevator pitch on what you do?
Elevator pitch, nice. So my name is Simona Smirnova. I'm a Lithuanian-born composer, vocalist, and Kanklés player. I've been living in the United States for the past 10 years. I'm originally from Lithuania, and I perform music which combines Lithuanian folk music with pop, jazz, rock, and electronic music elements.
That's a very polished elevator pitch. You've clearly done that before.
I practiced it in class.
Smart. There's a lot to unpack there. But I want to start with you just took a trip where you went home, and I'd like you to tell me stories about that trip because it looked really cool, and you did some really kind of awesome things while you were there. So yeah, let's hear about the trip.
Well, thank you for following, first of all. Thank you for following social media and reels and posts. And it brings a nice movement when you see that people follow and react and see that. So that's very nice. This trip was unexpected. I generally go quite often to Lithuania or travel in general. But this one was unexpected trip because around Thanksgiving, on the day of Thanksgiving, I learned that I was nominated by Global Lithuanian Leaders. Global Lithuanian Leaders is, I don't want to lie, but probably around a decade going organization, which brings in investment in Lithuania, celebrates culture, celebrates science, technology, and things like that. Lithuanians who spread the word about Lithuania worldwide. So I received a nomination for representing Lithuania globally through culture and through creativity by representing national instrument. And I play the Lithuanian zither, which is called Kanklés, by the way. So I just say zither so people can relate and understand what it is, but it's Kanklés. So I received that email that I got a nomination. I got very excited. So last minute, I got tickets to Vilnius, and I participated at the Global Lithuanian Leaders Award ceremony, which was in the City Hall with the presence of our president and the First Lady. So it was definitely a very nice and festive event, and it's around holiday time, so everybody's very excited and relaxed. So it was nice, and I was the only one nominee who got to perform. So that was very special to me because I was kind of like the main act of the ceremony. So I was very honored to be asked to do that and share Lithuanian folk song with everybody.
From the pictures, I mean, it looked very glamorous.
Yeah, it was quite glamorous and fun. That's how I like.
Did you also get a chance to see the family?
Yes, definitely. So I always try. It's not always easy to find that balance, but yes, I went to my hometown, and my hometown is a small town in eastern part of Lithuania, in a national park, and it's a town which has probably 4,000 people population, and we have like one school, one restaurant, one church, that kind of stuff. So I went back home. Of course, it was snowing and everything is closed. I spent some time with my mom and my cat and did the small town things. So it was very nice to kind of reflect on the place where I come from.
I want to talk about your instrument. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Kanklés.
Yes, it just stresses on the first part. So Kanklés.
Kanklés. Thank you.
Yes, very good.
Clearly do not speak Lithuanian. That's spelled Kankles with an accent on the E.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I'm glad that you clarified that it's like a zither, but we might have listeners that don't know what a zither is. Can you explain that a little further?
Well, zither is a string instrument, which you put it on your lap and you play by plucking the strings with your fingers. There's so many similar instruments to it. Most of the world cultures have something similar, like Russia has gusli, Finnish people have kantele, and we have kokle, and we have kanun in Middle Eastern countries. We have sitar. So that overall idea of kind of a lap harp, it's pretty common. So it's I don't want to say it's not that special, but pretty much all ethnic communities have some sort of a similar instrument. So I can talk more a little bit in specific about my instrument, because I know it. I can't talk about other instruments. So Kanklés is originally comes from very old pagan times when Lithuania was still not a Christian country. But the first time it was mentioned in written text, it was 16th century. So we don't really know when it was developed, but it is pretty old, and it comes along with spiritual practice. So people believe that when a loved one dies, that person's soul reincarnates into a tree. So when you cut down the tree and you make an instrument, you're kind of communicating, and you can with that person, and you can hear that person cry or connect or talk or things like that. So it was kind of a death cult. It sounds dark, but it's also, if as in nature and any spiritual practice, there's dark and light, and it's not received as dark. It just sounds dark maybe in this age. So people really had this spiritual practice, and they passed it along the way. Interesting fact that first Kanklés players were mostly men, and now it's pretty much all women. So it's an interesting thing how it changed, but obviously it evolves now. So the instrument was passed from generation to generation. The songs, the style of playing, and the strings also, there would be 5, 7, 9, or 12 strings, all magic numbers, some sort of connection with mysticism or month, the amount of months we have, or days in the week, and stuff like that. They also would have symbolism of the life tree or different Baltic symbols. But in 20th century, it was decided to develop the instrument to a larger one and open actually a major in academy, in our Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theater. So I think in 1950s, this instrument was developed to a larger 29-string lever instrument. So it means that you can play repertoire, you can play classical repertoire, you can play arranged music, modern music, and kind of go out of key. So then people started majoring, and there's whole education started and stuff like that. And music schools started having what are those called? Departments. I forgot the name. They started having folk departments and stuff. So the whole education started. So that was my first instrument. This is my first encounter with music. When I started learning music, that was exactly what I started. It was the Kanklés. I loved it from the first sight, from the first time hearing first notes. I just heard it. I heard the glissando, and I thought, I want to be Kanklés player forever. This is beautiful, and just kind of happened this way. Of course, it's a heavy instrument. It's uncomfortable to carry. It's uncomfortable to travel with. It goes out of tune. It breaks very easily. It's very capricious, and it's kind of like, I always was jealous to flute players and violin players or vocalists, and then I became one, but then I get to bring all PA myself, so it didn't work out that well too. So I guess I just took that's just going to be my instrument, and and now I keep playing, and I try to push the envelope and bring it into different styles.
That's awesome. I think it's so interesting when instruments are tied deeply to a specific culture. How is it tuned? Let me make sure I'm asking that question. I'm not asking you how do you tune it, but the distance and pitch between the strings. Can you explain kind of how that? Obviously I'm a musician, so some people are not going to care about that, but I'm curious.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me pretty much every time I perform in some sort of club somewhere, people come up and they say, what is that? And how do you tune it? That's most common questions. So the instrument is pretty much diatonic. You tune it. If you put all the levers one side, you have E flat major scale, just like you would play. If you usually I would tune it to C major. So I put the levers in C major, and if it's just like you would play through white keys on the keyboard or on the piano. This is going to sound exactly the same as white keys. In 29 string instruments has 4 octaves, so you would go 1 octave below middle C and 3 octaves above middle C. And you can go, if you have non-diatonic tones or you modulate, you have to change the levers. So the levers go up to 3 flats, so I can go to E flat major or C minor, or up to 4 sharps, up to E major. So if you have, sometimes I love D flat major. So sometimes I kind of do like sneaky moves, like retune to D flat certain notes, and I don't play in that octave, and then I kind of play in another octave, and I asked a drummer to do little fill with the samples while I'm retuning on the stage, all kinds of things. It brings some issues, but I try to play around. So it's diatonic, and we read from grand staff. So pretty much everything you play on the piano, I can play on the Kanklés, except only if it has a lot of chromatics. I just can't do chromatics. I cannot play chromatic unless I completely retune it, but I've actually never done it. And it sounds very complicated because then you have way less notes, and yeah, you have to kind of relearn the instrument. So yeah, we cannot do chromatics. When it comes down to jazz, I've done some like older standards, but I think it's as far as I can push in terms of non-diatonic tones. I can do like some secondary dominance here and there, but like if you completely all the time modulating, it's just not in the nature of instrument, and you're just gonna lose the groove. So yeah.
See, I think that's fascinating. Thank you you explained that like you were a teacher.
Oh, I am a teacher.
Oh, there you go.
I am a teacher.
How old were you when you first started learning Kanklés?
7. That's wow. Pretty common age in Eastern Europe. We have quite developed systems for learning music. It's a lot. We have a lot of state institutions, so it's free. And as you start first grade, so you are 6. Second grade is pretty common to enroll into state music school, and it works very differently from here. And now, me as being a teacher, freelance teacher in New York, I can kind of compare the difference. So you enroll into state music school, which works like a separate additional school. So you have, as you're 7 years old, you start, and you have 2 private instructions, 45 minutes. You have 2 solfege classes per week. You have a choir, an ensemble, and then this next year you get the second instrument. So you usually play piano, or if your primary instrument is piano, then something else. So you go to regular school, and then you spend every day at music school after that. And you do that for 7 or 8 years, and then you can continue if you want, go to conservatory and things like that. So that's pretty much common pathway for us, which I'm very grateful for, because I come from a poor upbringing, and I think if I would live in New York, I don't know, I would never play music, because lessons are so expensive and so hard for parents to kind of have consistency and find actually good teacher. For us, it was free. I didn't even have my instrument until I was 18. I would just go to the music school and just get practice room and just practice, and I didn't need to have an instrument. So yeah, it was nice to have that sort of support and get all the classes, because now when I teach, I have to be a theory teacher, I have to be solfege, ear training, an inspirational teacher, and prepare for the recital. So it's a lot for one person to handle. While we were studying, there's a lot of teachers who kind of carry you through musical journey. I don't know, how was yours? It would be interesting to hear how was your start.
Well, you're a little familiar with how public education works in the United States. When I was in elementary school or primary, there were music classes. I didn't see another music class after 7th grade. And the only way that you were going to get a music class after that level is if you were enrolled in choir or the band for the school. Music education has sadly been very de-emphasized in this country. So I'm pretty much all self-taught. I didn't start learning my main instrument, the bass, until I was 20 or 21. I learned there were no YouTube tutorials then because there was no YouTube. So either I had my friend show me something, or I would go on very rudimentary websites and download Internet Tab, and I would buy books or go to the library and get books about theory and how to play. And yeah, so it's a different approach, and I really wish that I had learned as a child, because just internalizing, even if you don't understand the terminology for the music theory you're learning, just internalizing the way music works makes you a better musician later, right?
I also think, but I do believe that, everybody has a different life pathway, and it's the right pathway for us. So, it fascinates me how people have such different backgrounds, but we still come together in one studio, in one stage, in one podcast, in one tour. We are together, and we kind of it's so different where we come from, how we were raised, when did we start learning music, but we come together and we make music together as one unit. So I think, that's also what is beautiful, that we're so different as musicians. Yeah.
We kind of, in a way, speak partially the same language when we understand music. I mean, especially you've got Maxime, who is French, and Marcelo, who is Brazilian. So English is not a first language for any of you, and you're making it together.
Yeah. And Marco is playing guitar. He's from Italy.
Wow. And 4 nationalities in one band.
Yes. So it is fascinating. I think that's the fact, keeps the drive, because music, as you probably know, not the easiest path in the world, or artistic nature in general.
Really want it.
Yeah, you have to really want it, and any artistic field, it's very complicated. So you have to kind of find those things what feed you throughout the journey. And I think that finding people who come from different backgrounds, but just they feel like family, it's very special.
I have 2 more questions about your childhood. The first one is, think about as far back as you can remember. What's the first song that you can remember hearing in your whole life?
Wow, never. I've been never asked this question. I definitely composed my own songs. I remember, I will answer to your question, but I remember when I came back first time from my first Kanklés lesson, I came back, I sat on a couch, and we had this big staff paper notebook my mom bought me, but she told me to save paper and cut it in half. So it was first and last. And I knew that I'm not allowed to use staff and use paper if it's not for class. So I'm okay, I'm just going to do my own thing. So I took the back page, the cover page, I put the ruler, I drew the staff, and I was I'm going to be a composer now after one class. And I composed these songs. I'll pay big bucks to see those songs. I think they're actually still in my mom's basement. I have to find it because I didn't throw it away, but I have to find it. So it was just these 4-measure or 8-measure melodies, which I composed myself. And they all were named by plants, flower names. And I'm thinking, my last album is Bird Language. And I'm thinking, nothing has changed over past 30 years. I still call things by volcanoes and plants and sunshine and bugs, birds. So anyways, so that was funny. I would always compose songs, and if mom would say, you have to learn a poem for the Santa Claus, and I would say, I don't need to learn a poem, I'm just gonna compose a poem on the spot. So real jazz lady. But in terms of hearing first song, I really don't know. My first thought was Pink Floyd or Michael Jackson, because that's what my dad would listen at home. And we had all those vinyl players and those record players where they spin. I don't even know how they call, but it's kind of you put the tape and they spin, those big ones. So we did have Pink Floyd, The Wall. We listened to it. I don't remember many children's songs because, I don't know. We just lived in the village, and whatever I heard. So I think one of those. We listened to Michael Jackson. We listened to Pink Floyd, and maybe Led Zeppelin, things like that. But I don't remember exactly the first song. I know my favorite songs. There was some very funny Lithuanian bands I left. I even was in a fan club when I was 8 years old, and I would go to fan club meetings. It's so silly when I think. And those songs are just some Lithuanian quirky pop songs. So, but yeah, I can't tell the one song. Do you know one song? One song?
I do. It was "Babe" by Styx, which I didn't learn the name of the song until I was an adult, and I didn't learn the band that made it till I was an adult. But I have clear memories of hearing that song as a very small child.
Yeah.
When I did my research, that record came out when I was 2, and my parents had to have bought it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have those clear memories. Which is why I asked that question, because maybe other people have those kind of memories, and it makes for good stories. So here's another one that will make for a good story. What did your childhood smell like?
Like soil, and vegetables, like a true village child. Yeah, that's the first thought, because I don't know if you ever had that feeling when you like step out and you barefoot and you step on this kind of still cold, if it's a summertime, cold soil with your bare feet, and you can feel the coolness and wetness from the soil, or morning dew on the grass. So that was kind of like a thing, and we did a lot of soil work, so like weeding or planting. I would plant potatoes and weed beets and do things. And my mom told me that first time she took me, because we kind of juggled between city and the village at first. So she said first time she took me to the village and I was in a stroller. I ran away from the stroller. Somehow I barely could walk. And I was going through the garden and just kind of eating all the onions. And I was just like all green. And I just like such a nature child. And mom couldn't believe how out of all the things in the garden, I picked onions, those, the green ones, the scallions, I guess that's how we would call them. So yeah, I think that's the as true New Yorker, urban living lady, I say my childhood smell is soil and vegetables.
That's great. See, it brings up a story. And like you mentioned earlier, you really haven't changed. You obviously still like nature.
Yeah, I think it's a very, even though living in Manhattan, it feels so natural to me, but going back to my hometown feels natural too. I feel like both of these worlds live evenly within me. And it's kind of like a universe within. It's large. You're like your heart, like your soul, like your spiritual world. It's large. You can contain a lot of things. It doesn't have to be one or the other thing. So, yeah.
Bird Language is your third album, and it came out in 2022. And I would like you to talk about that.
Yeah, so Bird Language, I think, is like a representation of me. In one, it really represents the way I think about life, the way I sing, the way I compose. It has 11 musicians, so it's also large instrumentation. Prehistory of that is that my first album was based on Franz Kafka's short story, A Hung Artist. So I always loved literature and I read a lot. So I kind of based off that, and the whole storyline it also was like a live show with modern dance. So it was very theatrical, kind of avant-garde, and written based on a protagonist. The second album was String Quartet, written for the silent film, The Passion of Joan of Arc. And then it became an album which follows the trial of Joan of Arc. So it's like a historical figure. So first was protagonist, second was a historical figure, kind of a feminist founder. And I guess with the third album, I felt like this is my music. I composed it, but it doesn't represent my personality very much. It's about someone else's story, which I color and I compose about, but I've never put myself in the front line. So with Bird Language, I really put myself. It's very personal and it kind of represents the way I live and my personality. So it has some Lithuanian folk songs, some archaic symbols, and it's highly inspired by Carl Gustav Jung and his philosophy on collective subconsciousness and dream reality, and in general dream work. So it has a lot of that archaic ancestral yearning or leaning into it. And that's why I draw inspiration from older cake melodies. So for example, in one of the songs, Solstice, I use a very old Lithuanian chant for summer solstice as a motif, but I sing very personal, kind of sultry, kind of intimate words as well, playing on the, sun, what sun gives to us, how we perceive sun through five senses, but also through me. So it's kind of like that duality. So I really put a lot of that ancestral common knowledge. I don't know if that's a good word, but like connection, and also my personal experiences and wishes and dreams and personality traits. So I think that bird language really represents me in terms of as a composer as well, because it has string quartet, it has jazz quartet, it has saxophone, it has my Kanklés, it has background vocals, it has my friends in it. So all these people are friends since college, and it was great to have them in studio. So it's just a work which combines and represents that urban life with full of nature-driven inner world. I hope that was clear.
That was brilliant. When you sit down to compose, what's the first tool that you reach for?
Piano.
Not Kanklés.
No,
so
because
why is the question?
Because Kanklés is limited. It is limited to you can't. So I compose on the piano all the time, and then I try to write it down, record it on my phone, listen back, all that stuff. And then I see what are the sections where I can incorporate Kanklés without losing the energy of the song. So if it has so many lever changes, and I still kind of struggle, I still kind of thinking, should I have Kanklés? It sounds nice, but instead of like looking at people and being present, I'm shifting all the levers all the time. So it's always a compromise. So yeah, it's piano because I do like to go out of key and experiment with the harmony. And then I see the pockets where I can incorporate Kanklés. Although Bird Language, the title track, was purely composed on Kanklés. And that was some interesting story because I just sat down and I just wrote it. And it's just out of one sitting. And it was one of the most like successful, I don't know if that's a good word, but like the most represented and played piece on the album, and it became a title track, and I have a music video. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. So it kind of became my whole theme for these past 4 years. So that was composed on Kanklés. Maybe that's a sign I should compose more on Kanklés.
I mean, obviously our experiences are different, and I often compose on piano, but I'm a bass player.
Yes.
And I still compose on bass, which is obviously limited, right? You're not getting the full chord flavors, but there's something to be said about working around an instrument's limitation or your own personal limitation that will give you ideas that you might not have had otherwise.
Yeah, no, that's true. I agree. Well, when I compose string music, I just compose on finale. So that is different.
I don't even know what that is. Please help me.
Finale is a musical notation software when you type in. So like Joan of Arc was composed pretty much on finale. And now my fourth album and a book, which I'm releasing in less than a month. I don't know if you had a chance to see that somewhere, but Oh, okay. So that's the new thing. So on February 16th, I'm releasing my sheet music book, which is called Kanklés in New York. And it's also an album because it has audio tracks. So it contains 14 pieces, 14 original pieces, 9 instrumental, 5 vocal pieces written for the Kanklés, in starting from like very light, easy level to complicated level. So it has a mission to spread the instrument so more people would play, children would play, people who played at some point and forgot and want to pick it up. So we really do need more modern repertoire. So I try to tap into different styles. So there's like a piece of like meditational music, bossa nova style, jazz style, rock style, and more classical style. So all different genres. So this will be released in February, but I'm also going on tour with the book release, which starts tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm flying to Los Angeles and I'm presenting the book in Los Angeles, and then I have a release in New York on February 9th, then in Chicago February 11th, 12th, then in Detroit February 18th, then Cleveland, February 19th. Then I'm going to Lithuania to present at the Vilnius Book Fair, which is the biggest book fair in the Baltic states. So I'll be there for 4 days from 23rd to 26th of February. Then I'm going to Berlin and present in Berlin at the Lithuanian embassy. Then I come back, I go to San Francisco, and then to Washington, D.C. embassy. That's my trip.
Wow. That's exciting.
That is, I keep saying, and I'm like, just don't forget anything. Yes. So it is very exciting time, and it's kind of very different because it has two aspects. It's not only album this time, it's me going and presenting the instrument and talking about it, meeting communities, meeting consulates, meeting embassies, meeting Lithuanian schools, ethnic communities. It's really not advocacy, but representational work for folk music and ethnic instrument. So yes, and it starts tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm flying 10 a.m. to Los Angeles.
So where can the listeners go to follow you on this journey?
So they can follow me on Instagram. I'm very findable everywhere as my name, Simona Smirnova. So SIMONA That's a lot of letters. So Simona Smirnova, the same Facebook as well by my name, Simona Smirnova, my artist page, and TikTok and LinkedIn, and pretty much everywhere. I have a YouTube channel also by my name. I have some nice music videos done, and there's a short documentary about my book and my life in New York is coming out next week. So that's dropping on my YouTube channel next week. And I also filmed a music video while I was on tour in New Zealand last summer. So I have a music video coming out from New Zealand from one of the bird language songs. So yeah, there's a lot of online presence and easily traceable.
In a couple of months after you get back, I think I want to have you guest again and just talk about travel, because I love travel and you've been to a lot of places and I just want to hear stories. So I'll link to all those sites in the show notes that people can go follow you. I only have one more question. I am talking to Maxime and Marcelo later today for my podcast. What should I ask them? Is there anything you think I should ask those guys?
Well, good question. So, wow. They both are amazing musicians, and very friendly and very approachable. So I think that Marcelo, you should probably ask a lot about his compositions because he writes so much, and maybe Brazilian influences to his progressive sort of rock, jazz. And about leading the band, maybe because Marcelo is doing the thing, leading the band and bringing in people and organizing everything. And for Maxime, I think that Maxime for a while played with different people and friends, but he's been having and feeling like maybe it's time to start his own project. So maybe you can ask him, and don't tell him I said, but you can like, oh, so when is your solo leader album? And he'll be like, yeah, I'll be thinking about it for a while. So maybe you can ask and inspire, or like say something and be that stranger who says that one thing when you're like, okay, it's time, because it's one to play at other people's projects and one is actually to do your own. So I think Maxime was thinking about it for a while and spinning that in his head. So yeah, maybe something about that.
I'll do that. So with Maxime, we're going to talk in English and French, and I'm going to split it into 2 episodes because I speak French. Not as well as a French person, but it's my second.
That's amazing that you speak so many languages.
Only 3, but it's useful. Maybe I'll ask him that in French.
Yeah, you can. He'll be like, take him by surprise.
All right. Well, hey, Simona, thank you for your time. I know you're really busy, and you have a lot of interesting things going on. It's very fascinating. Congratulations on being recognized in Lithuania for being an ambassador of the Kanklés. That's pretty awesome. And I wish you great success on your upcoming tour.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for taking an interest in me and my friends. It's very nice and kind of reaffirming too when people notice what we do and take interest and ask and giving your time. And congratulations on your successful podcast. It's amazing.
Thank you. So first, ačiū to Simona. That's my way of pronouncing thank you in Lithuanian. I hope I got it right. But thank you, ačiū, Simona, for taking time out of your busy schedule and talking to me. Dear listeners, thank you as well for being here. And Simona is on the road right now. If you are in her path, you might want to go see her, check out the book and the recordings about Kanklés music. You know, we're just going to make it a whole international week here on the podcast. This Friday, I'm talking to Marcelo, who is from Brazil and plays in Simona's band. Come on back and enjoy that conversation.